Hello everybody and welcome back to the West Ham Network. Anton here giving you an update on West Ham. West Ham have announced in the last few hours that we're completing the deal to bring Todibo in officially. Obviously he was on loan with an obligation to buy should he meet certain criteria. He's met that criteria and West Ham have signed him on a permanent deal. We'll come on to him in a second. West Ham have also announced Carlos Soler will be leaving West Ham after his loan spell has expired and heading back to PSG alongside Evan Ferguson, who will be going back to his parent club, which is Brighton. Now, we can get into it because you could classify this as the clear out has begun. And I suppose in theory, it's probably telling you something you already knew. But it's worthwhile noting a few things in relation to this. Now, in terms of Jean-Claire Todibo, I rate the player quite highly. Bit concerned at the fitness stage, you know, his fitness levels, where he's at, but he did return back and start games and finish games. My biggest concern was not necessarily the injuries that he picked up that he couldn't play, but when he could play, he couldn't finish games. He was like 60 minutes, 65 minutes, bang, he was subbed off. But laterally in the season, he was there. And I think we can build from a solid foundation of Jean-Claire Todibo alongside Max Kilman and bringing in the relevant players incoming to the club. So I think Jean-Claire Todibo is definitely a future player for West Ham. I know there's the opinion amongst the fan base that maybe West Ham should look to flip because clubs are generally interested in a player of Jean-Claire Todibo's ability, and I understand why clubs are interested in his ability because he is a ball-playing defender. I think he's really clever in the ball. I like his style, and I think that does actually complement Kilman. But the biggest thing for me is in making sure that we have a solid foundation at the back, and if you have Todibo, Kilman and someone else alongside them, then you can build from the back from that position. And I felt like this season in particular, because we had Todibo, you know, a new structure, a new setup, and you had Kilman come in, and then you had Todibo in and out of the team, and then you had Mavropanos in and out of the team, then you had Creswell playing in that position in and out of the team. There was no consistency, and that's something that I'm crying out for this season moving forward. I think West Ham need to build from, you know, the core through the team, from the centre backs through to the midfield and up top. And if you have that solid foundation, then you can build and build and build from there. Something I've been crying out for such a long time is to sort out our defence. Our defence is something that's needed to be sorted to stop shipping goals. I do think Jean-Claire Todibo and Max Kilman can lead the line in that department, but we do need to bring other recruits in. So, happy that he's signed. And be interesting to see what we do around that business. On top of that, Carlos Soler is heading back to PSG. And do you know what? I think he's been a bit of a hit and a miss. I suppose West Ham trying to make that deal permanent would cost us too much money, not just in fees and transfer fees, but also in weekly wages. And obviously, if you're getting closer to the PSR deadline and remit, you need to stay on board with that. Obviously, he's not in the remit of the young players that West Ham should be looking at around the world. But I do think we can go and get better bang for a buck, and that's something we desperately need to work on, is getting bang for our buck. Something we never have done in my lifetime that I can remember. Really, if you look at all of the transfers, they don't ever tend to work out in our favour. Sell for profits, buy for lower amounts of money. So in terms of Carlos Soler, I think he held his head high. I think when he was given his opportunity in the team, I think he presented himself well enough. A couple of times he did look really good, and then a couple of times he looked below standard and below average. But for me, I think he is a respectable guy that will go down in history as you know, always be welcome back to the London Stadium. And now gives us some extra finances to go and punt into another player that we desperately need in this squad, because we're now saying bye to several players with, now as it stands, no official incomings yet. And then Evan Ferguson, I don't know, I had some high hopes, but I think at the start when he came in, he did come with injury prone issues. We know Potter worked with him at Brighton, and he gave him his opportunity at Brighton, and at the early days of his Brighton career he was very decent and definitely looked like he had a talent and something that would grow in the football world. But his injuries really set him back. He was out of football for a long time, and he never really could get back into the swing of things. And really, to be honest, he never hit the ground running at West Ham. He seemed like a quiet lad that never really got involved, probably didn't really necessarily want to be there. I could be wrong, but it just didn't seem to be a good fit at the time, and maybe it felt like it was the right decision to bring him in, but hindsight's a wonderful thing, and looking back, it probably was not a good deal for West Ham in the long run. So quite you know, happy that we're not making that deal permanent, you know, split, but probably more on the side of happy that we're not making Soler permanent as well. But it just means that we need to get busy in this transfer market. Teams are moving and we cannot afford not to move. And you can't tell me that there's not players out there that we've done our due diligence on and bringing in. So it'll be interesting. But really going back to it, Jean-Claire Todibo, I'm not interested in flipping him unless there's a stupid amount of money there to accept. And then so long, farewell. If we're just saying goodbye to Soler and Evan Ferguson. Leave your comments in the comment section, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come on, you Irons.